Mark. I'm Pastor Trish, and I'm so happy to be back with you for another installment of our mental health moments. I hope that you have found these helpful, and we'll certainly continue them in the weeks ahead. Back near the beginning, I think it was week 2, I talked to you a little bit about the value and the impact that developing healthy rhythms in our lives can have on our mental health and well-being. And today I wanted to just dive in a little deeper into one of those rhythms that can have actually a profound effect on your overall health and well-being, and that is the rhythm of rest. So as a musician, I have, a unique appreciation for the value of rest. If you think about a piece of music and the notes that it takes to put that piece of music together, it really wouldn't work without rest. There's the space in between the notes that we play and the notes that we sing are just as much a vibrant part of the music that we make as the notes themselves. And that's true in our lives as well. Our moments of rest, our moments of sleep are an integral and vital part of a life lived that is wholehearted and thriving. And I think often we don't place priority on our sleep and our rest in the way that we should. And I will admit that some of you watching maybe really don't have this problem, right? Some of you are good at resting, you sleep well, it's not a problem. But I know for many of us, it really is a problem, and it impacts us so profoundly. So I think all of us have had that experience of what the day after looks like when you don't get a good night's sleep, right? That irritability, the moods that you might experience, the lack of focus, the tiredness, the sometimes having trouble remembering things, and even right down to not feeling physically well. I think it's a great reminder of how sleep and rest impact us, body, mind, and soul. And certainly the Bible has a lot to say about the value of rest and sleep. If you go right back to the beginning in Genesis and you read the creation story, you know that God, after creating the heavens and the earth, light and darkness, the sun, the moon, the stars, plant life and animals and sea creatures and human beings, after all that work of creation was done, God rested. And certainly if the creator of the universe rested, we can be sure that that's something that we should do and that we need. And so that's kind of our first example in Scripture of rest, but it's a theme that we see all throughout Scripture. And of course, that when you see things repeated like that, it reminds us that this is vitally important. And so often throughout the Bible, we are invited into rest. Jesus tells us to abide in Him. We're promised rest. I love Psalm 23 that describes God as our shepherd, and it talks about how He leads us beside quiet waters, and that He makes us to lie down in green pastures, and He restores our soul. There's a reason why that psalm is so well loved. It's the kind of rest I think we all long for, but it's also the kind of rest that we often feel guilty because we live in a society that is often so busy, often just always running to the next thing. We value efficiency and accomplishments and getting things done. We don't always value rest, and yet it's so crucial. So I think, and I've held this back for last, but one of my favorite scripture references about sleep in particular is found in Mark, and it's the story of where Jesus is in the boat with his disciples, and a vicious storm rises up, and it actually describes that Jesus was in the stern of the boat sleeping. And I will admit I am someone who is guilty of constantly rushing to the next thing and the next thing and never stopping and never resting. And one of the sentences that I like to say to remind myself of the importance of rest is, even Jesus took naps. And he took a nap in the middle of a storm. Which is wild. But, we're in the middle of a long storm, aren't we? And it is certainly the right thing for us to rest. So what I want to leave you with today, that was the main thing, was just to reflect a little bit about the value of rest and the importance of rest, and encourage you, if you are moving at too fast a pace, to realize that slowing down and giving yourself permission to stop and to rest is important. But I wanted to also today just leave you with a few tips for those of you who really are struggling with your sleep, because mental health and sleep are intricately connected. Those who have disrupted sleep are impacted psychologically, and those who are going through mental health struggles, things like depression, often experience disrupted sleep. So there's a strong relationship between the two. And so developing some really good habits around your sleep can help. There are things that you can do. And some of this might be obvious to you. Some of this you might not realize. So I think it's worth saying. I won't be able to say all the things that can help. And so if you struggle with your sleep, it's also worth, maybe even just doing a Google search on what they call sleep hygiene. It's kind of an interesting term, but that's kind of what they call it. And you'll find lists of things that can help with your sleep. So a few things to keep in mind. If you are wanting to get a better night's sleep, is first of all to go to bed and get up at the same time every day. And I think many people have experienced this, that if you stay up past your regular time that you go to bed, one night you find like the next night that it's actually harder to fall asleep at your regular time, but your system almost wants to move to that new bedtime that you established the night before, or when you sleep in one morning, it's harder to get up at your regular time the next morning. So there's something about consistency with our sleep that really helps us to anchor into a good rhythm. And what I found really interesting to learn as I was sort of studying this a little bit, is that actually going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time every day doesn't just help with your wake up and your go to bed time. It actually improves the quality of your sleep through the night. So that consistent going to bed and waking up at the same time every day can make an immense difference in your quantity and quality of sleep. So that's suggestion number one. Suggestion number two is just all about creating a restful environment for yourself when you're trying to sleep. And so one of the things we know is that light actually signals to our brain that it's time to be awake. And so, it's important to get your room nice and dark when it's time to go to bed. And I've even heard of people, dimming their lights a little bit an hour before bed, just to help themselves get ready for, and to cue their minds that, okay, it's time to sleep. And it can help that sort of wind down so that by the time you get into your bed, you're a little more ready to sleep. And, we love our cell phones, but and I'm sure many of you have heard this. It's recommended that an hour before bed, steer clear of screens, because again, that light signals to your brain that it's time to be awake, and it makes it harder to fall asleep when the time comes. So, the final thing I think that when you have difficulty sleeping, things are keeping you up at night, that's often because of a mind that is racing. It's hard, you're having trouble quieting down and falling asleep. And so two things that can help with this. One is it's actually not recommended that you stay in bed awake for a long period of time. And so the best thing to do if you've got, a racing mind, or you're restless, or you're having trouble sleeping, is to actually get up out of bed, do something calming and quiet, not with lights on or anything like that, but just something that can calm you a bit, and then try again. And if you've got those racing worries, sometimes it can help to just take a few minutes and write them down, or pray them to God, and try to just leave them in His hands, for the night, and then try again. And that can certainly help. So I hope some of these ideas maybe can help you to get a better rest. It is certainly something that God desires for you, that you're invited into. I hope that as you go about your day, that you'll consider the value of breaks and stopping. And I pray that this time ahead of you will be a season that has a balance of rest in your life. See you next week.